Cyprus dates to around the 10th millennium BC and has had a turbulent past, largely due to its strategic position in the Eastern Med. The latest crisis took place in 1974, when they were invaded by the Turks from the north. This resulted in the island being divided roughly in half by what is known as the Green Line. The Turkish Cypriots inhabited the north and the Greek Cypriots the south. These events and the resulting political situation are matters of a continuing dispute. We flew into Larnaca on the east coast and drove across to Paphos, which was to be our home for the next 3 weeks. We had a great view from our veranda, so decided to braai and partake in a little bacchus. Cyprus is so old, they're always digging up ancient ruins. Parts of the old town, quite picturesque. Shouldn't it be red? Some areas have been given a facelift. It was Easter, so I guess this was their Easter parade. Old mosques and churches everywhere. The town flea market was open that morning. The old fort in the harbour dates back to the Byzantine era. The catacombs are situated close by. Azir Solomon was one of the first to reject idolatry and embrace Christianity on the island. The story goes that she took refuge in the caves to escape persecution from the Romans, but they walled up the entrance, condemning her to a slow and cruel death. However, when the cave was opened 200 years later, the saint walked out alive. Also in the area are the tombs of the kings. These underground tombs, many of which date back to the 4th century BC, are carved out of solid rock and are thought to have been the burial sites of aristocrats and high officials up to the 3rd century AD. The name comes from the magnificence of the tombs. No kings were actually buried here. Some of the tombs featured Doric columns and frescoed walls. In some areas, one can see the remains of magnificent mosaics. Further east was the sanctuary of Apollo, one of the most important religious centers in Cyprus during the ancient times. Sadly, it was destroyed by the severe earthquake of 364 AD. Someone mentioned we should try out the 7 St. George's Tavern for a good meze. We were not disappointed. We spent a few days exploring the slopes of the Troodos Mountains, the beginning of the wine area. I certainly didn't see vast vineyards like we have here. We found the Zambatas wineries and stopped for a tasting, obviously. Prices ranged from about 120 Rand to 270 Rand a bottle.
This is Xenisteri, 2016. I don't know how much red wine you drink, but this one is going to be dry.
What's it called?
It's going Maratheftico.
This little place was so cute, with narrow streets and broken, dilapidated buildings. Note the quiet streets though. No people walking around. No children playing. They told us that all the young people had left, and as the older ones die off, the villages gradually decay. However, we found Takas's Tavern, the local, where we had lunch. Great atmosphere. On through the countryside, more vineyards, and we came across the medieval castle of Colossi. It dates back to the 13th century and was a former Crusader stronghold. Past more abandoned homes. So sad.
Stones, I think, and the road. Let's get close up to the dash as we get well.
In the middle of nowhere, we came across this donkey farm. And partook in some light refreshment before driving on to find the monastery of Panagia. It was founded in the 16th century. My book had a lovely pic of it nestled serenely in the hills, and I wanted one too. On now through some beautiful country to another wonderful landmark, one of the hidden Venetian bridges. Testimony to the Venetian rule in the early 16th century. It's tucked away in a quiet valley and forms part of an old camel trail. In the heat of the day, there's a coolness here from the gently burbling stream it crosses. A magical place indeed. We're doing the north and west side of the island today and pass through Pagea, where Estelle and Brian have a beautiful home. Lee saw a loquat tree down a cute little side street, so we stopped to acquire some. Across the road, I saw this old lady feeding her fire. It was such a genuinely local scene that I grabbed my camera and invaded her space. She was so friendly, showed us how she made sesame rolls, and chatted away in her little kitchen.
I have many English friends. Sesame. Yes, I like.
I've no idea how old she was, but life couldn't have been too easy for her.
Little small. Now we speak.
Then we just meandered through the countryside. The walls of this church were mixed with milk. And we found Aphrodite's baths. And Lee bought strawberries for supper. Sadly, no Cointreau. It was lunchtime, and we were told about this little taverna in a village not far away, so decided to call in for a meze. At Polis, still on the north coast, we stopped for a beer in the harbour.
Cheers.
Thank you, thank you.
And decided to take a cruise along the coast.
Good morning and welcome aboard.
The water was absolutely stunning. I didn't enhance the color of these shots at all.
Here is a pail of the sea case.
We stopped at what looked like a favorite spot for swimming and had a dip in the unbelievable water. A barbie on the stern, too good. All too quickly, we had to head for home. One Friday evening, we spent a memorable few hours at Savas Grill. We packed our passports and set off for the northern Turkish side of the island, crossing the border at Nicosia. Although relations have been strained for many years, they're relatively calm at the moment. We headed north to Kyrenia and spent a few hours strolling around their very picturesque harbour. Can you believe Kyrenia has been populated since around 5000 BC? The Romans established the foundations of its castle in the 1st century AD. You get lovely views of the harbour and surrounds from the battlements.
Kiralık var mı?
The imposing 13th century Bellapes monastery and church sits on the hill just behind town. And then high in the mountains are the spectacular ruins of St. Hilarion's Castle, originally built to guard the pass between Nicosia and Kyrenia. It features in the movie The Apocalypse Fire. That night, we once again had a good local meal. Then it was up to the northeast. The Karpas Peninsula is a long, finger-like area of land in the northeast of the island. You see very little traffic here. A good road, but with a 60 km/h speed limit, very frustrating. You see partially finished homes. Politics and the financial crisis some time ago led to many homeowners having to just abandon their homes. You don't even see much activity in the little towns. Cape Apostolos Andreas, the northernmost town on the peninsula. And we drive out to see the monastery near here, passing some quiet rural scenes and lovely beaches. After the Turkish invasion of Cyprus in 1974, very few pilgrims have visited the monastery. But with the opening of crossing points, they're on the increase. It's fallen into a state of disrepair in recent years, and UN funding is in place to pay for refurbishment. This area is well known for its donkeys.
Is it coming? It's coming, it's coming.
Wait. Oh! Hello, donkey.
We head south now to Famagusta and visited the ruins of Salamis. I know it's a bit boring to see them like this, but after just rereading the pamphlet again to make this video, I wish I had time to tell you some detail about this fascinating town, which was inhabited in the 11th century BC. Everything is so old on this island. This statue of Ataturk, founder of the Republic of Turkey, stands outside one of the gates to the old city in Famagusta. The old walled town was the island's most important port and a gateway to trade with the ports of the Eastern Med. The merchants and ship owners led lives of luxury. The belief that people's wealth could be measured by the churches they built inspired them to have many churches built in varying styles. Most of them still exist and are the reason why Famagusta came to be known as the District of Churches. I wonder how long old people have been sitting in the old backstreets of Europe. A rather sad fact about Famagusta. One of its suburbs, Varosha, has been a ghost town since the Turkish invasion in 74. Its inhabitants literally fled overnight, and it's remained abandoned and under the occupation of the Turkish armed forces ever since. Entry is forbidden to the public. As of 2017, the city continues to be uninhabited, with a population of 0. It's Easter Sunday, and we've heard that the locals in a little village down the coast called Pasuri will hold celebrations today. On the way, we passed the birthplace of Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of love. A really beautiful spot on the coast. Listen to the rattle of the pebbles as the water recedes. Pasuri, a really cute little village. Sitting in his small backyard and hey, way to go. The town square where it will all happen. The pancake stall. She's done this before. crowds have arrived, and so have our mezes. What I loved about today was that I think we were the only tourists there. Games for the kids and the moms and the dads. Hey, be careful, you two. Haven't seen rock lifting before. Wow, I love it. I must admit that traditional dancing was not my thing, but a great afternoon with the locals. Our last views of the beauty around Paphos, the colour of the water, picturesque churches, small harbours, the sea caves, an interesting old wreck, and the tavernas. Oh, how we'll miss you.